Welcome to WrestleMania.
Ooh, yeah! I am the game! Woo!
Yes! I will give you a show like you have never, ever seen before. Why? Because I'm
the best there is, the best there was, and the best that there ever will be.
You will rest in peace.
And what you're gonna do when the whole world falls to me and destroy and that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold
Welcome back to your boy, the Lexman's WrestleMania review series. We truck along into WrestleMania 18. Now, following what I consider to be the greatest WrestleMania of all time, they had some big shoes to fill, and unfortunately, they didn't fill those shoes. But it was still a solid show. I sat through it. I had no issues by the time it was over. The show overall had decent, okay matches. Even the main event, it was still decent, but it didn't live up to the hype that it got. And they put a lot into that main event. In 2002, the WWF lost the rights. They lost the rights to the WWF acronym. They couldn't use that anymore. Basically, they were in a dispute with World Wildlife Fund, and they lost. And so WWF had to be changed to WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. It wasn't an easy change. And people, even now, in 2017, are still getting used to the change. After going decades saying WWF, now you have to say WWE. It's hard for me to say WWE now. I've been saying WWF in these reviews since I started it, and now I have to all of a sudden start saying WWE. It's not an easy change. It's not. But it had to be done. They had to do it. They lost the dispute. It sucks. I think it's stupid, but they did what they had to do to move on. 2002 is also known for the year the NWO debuted. What they used to bring them in, some of the best promo work by Vince McMahon, period. WWE is going to die. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill it. Inject the WWE with a lethal dose of if anybody's gonna kill my company, it's gonna be me. He turns around in his chair and awesome. Some of the best promo work by Vince McMahon. They were coming in with a lot of fire. The problem is the WWE wanted the NWO and WCW. And what they didn't realize is the NWO and WCW weren't necessarily villains. They were the cool bad guys. WWE, unfortunately, lives in a black and white world. You're either heels or you're faces. They didn't stand out in WWE. Like a lot of things coming in from WCW. It just sucks that the NWO didn't work out. Part of the problem was Hulk Hogan. When he returned to WWE, they didn't want to boo him. They weren't ready to boo Hogan. So when he returned, it was already off to a bad start. They were cheering Hogan, and Nash, and Scott Hall. So what do? How do you make them heels? You can't. So it fell apart. One thing that did work was Triple H's return. So in 2001, Triple H suffered his first of, I think, 2 leg injuries. It put him out basically for the rest of the year. Throughout 2001, he busted his ass to come back. And he does. He comes back. They didn't know what he was going to get. Boos, cheers. All they knew was that he was going to close the show. That's it. They were taking a gamble. I'm going to assume they were trying to present him as a face. They were going to just go out there and say, here, he's a face. When Triple H walked out on that stage on his return, I dare say he got the biggest babyface pop out of anybody since Austin. That arena lost their freaking minds when he stepped on that stage. It was so emotional for Triple H that he cried. For years, Triple H has been having great matches and great feuds, great angles with DX, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, but he never got the validation of someone who's an elite player. Not until he returned in 2002. This was the year. This was the moment that people finally accepted Triple H as that guy. You, my friend, are an elite player. You are one of the greatest of all time. I put Triple H in my top 10. My top 10 list will always include Triple H. You know Stephanie at this time is a spoiled brat. And Triple H is not giving her a lot of attention. And she hates that. And so Triple H and her are having issues. So to get his attention, she fakes a pregnancy. She says, I'm pregnant. Which makes Triple H fall in love with her all over again. But then it's revealed that it's a fake pregnancy, and then he divorces her. He divorces Stephanie. They have a wedding segment, one of the best, and probably the only good wedding segment they've done, that I remember at least. Speaking of Chris Jericho, I dare say he had the best year in 2001. Not only was he one of the hottest superstars in WWF, but he was also the very first ever undisputed world heavyweight champion. He defeated The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin to combine the WWF and WCW championships to become the WWE Undisputed Champion. We got the birth of the What Chance. The What Chance. I mean, Austin just did this random craziness during his heel run where he was just saying what all the time. It got over. Again, it was very hard to hate Austin during his heel run, which is why I said in my last video, probably wasn't the best time to turn him heel. Probably wasn't the best idea to turn him heel. But I will say this, it gave birth to the What Chance. One of the greatest chants in the world, as well as the You Suck chants. Every single time Kurt Angle came out, he got You Suck chants. It's not even an insult at this point. It's just an act of endearment. He wants the You Suck chants. Also, on one last note, it doesn't pertain to WrestleMania 18, but it should be said, this is the last WrestleMania before the draft. Following this WrestleMania, we will have SmackDown and Raw superstars. I thought it should be noted at least. The show is 4 hours, as I said in my last WrestleMania review. The rest of these shows are going to be 4 hours long. The date was March 17th, 2002. We return to the Skydome in Toronto, the same place we had WrestleMania 6. The attendance, 68,237, a bigger audience than WrestleMania 6. Not bad. Commentary, Jim Ross and Jerry, the King Lawler. Ring announcer, Howard Finkel. Interviewer, Lillian Garcia, Jonathan Coachman, and Kevin Kelly. The first match is a WWE Intercontinental Championship match. William Regal, who is no longer the commissioner, but just William Regal, he's the champion, took on one of the newest stars for WWE, Rob Van Dam. At this point, he was at the peak of his career, and everything he did was awesome. One of the best performers in that company, at least, in 2002. He wins the Intercontinental Championship. It put the spotlight right on him, like it should be. Next is the WWE European Championship. I think this might be the last European Championship match we see at WrestleMania. I don't think we see another one after this. I'm not too sure. We will see next time, but if it isn't, let me know in the comments. Let me talk about Diamond Dallas Page. Look, I love DDP. I thought out of all the talents that come from WCW, him and Goldberg were the only two homegrown talent. See, WCW didn't create talent. They took talent from WWF and made them the top stars. But Diamond Dallas Page, he didn't come from WWF. He was born and made in WCW. The only two talent that I know were born and made in WCW were DDP and Goldberg. Those are the only two big names that came from that company. So I'm thinking, okay, when he comes to the WWE, he's going to be great. It's set for him. He's someone that can thrive, that could have thrived in WWE. But unfortunately, he's a victim, another victim of the war. They brought him in and treated him like crap. And it's unfortunate because he came in on a great storyline, stalking The Undertaker's wife to have a feud with The Undertaker. Like, that's the best place to start. Because in WCW, he was the People's Champion. We can't have two People's Champions because The Rock is the People's Champion in WWE. Regardless, it sucks. It sucks that Diamond Dallas Page basically couldn't be who he was in WCW. He donned this... I'm sorry, I know some of you like it, but I don't. It's this stupid, it's me, it's DDP. Smiling doofus gimmick. Made him look like a joke. Nowhere near the stardom he was in WCW. And I believe this is his first and only WrestleMania match. He beats Christian, he retains the championship, and the championship retires not too long after this, so... I'm sorry, I know DDP is going into the Hall of Fame, so I can take solace that they respect him enough to put him in the Hall of Fame, whether it's for his career as a wrestler, or DDP Yoga, whatever. But it doesn't make up for the fact that they treated him like crap in WWF and WWE. See, I told you, it's gonna be hard going back and forth between these acronyms. It's okay, you understand. I'm sorry, I didn't like it. I didn't like how they used DDP at all. We have a WWE 24/7 Hardcore Championship match. Goldust versus Tough Enough winner Maven. Remember Maven? No? I don't either. I'm just joking, he was cool. And new Hardcore Champion, Spike Dudley. What? No, you heard me. Spike Dudley. He interfered in the match with his own referee and took advantage of the 24/7 rule. He walks away with the championship and then meets the Hurricane backstage. We had the WrestleMania debut of the Hurricane, and Hurricane beats him. What's up with that? Man, I love that character. Let's move on. Kurt Angle took on Kane in a good match. A surprisingly good match. Now, I'll be real with you. Kane doesn't always have the best matches. So I was very surprised to see him have a good match against Kurt Angle, especially with their extremely contrast styles. But they pulled it off, man. Kane pulled his own, Kurt Angle, and honestly, it's kind of hard to have a bad match with Kurt Angle, but they still had a good match. It takes two to tango. It should be said that the only person so far to make Kane tap out, if I'm not mistaken, was two people. The first one, though, was Kurt Angle. The second one, I believe, is Chris Benoit. And I'll have a long discussion about him at WrestleMania 20. That's coming. Next up, American Badass. Undertaker versus the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. WrestleMania Streak Match number 10. The build to this, amazing. We see Taker threaten, bully, bait the Nature Boy into winning this match, attacking Arn Anderson, his family, David Flair. One of my favorite beatdowns. And we got a great match out of it, man. Of course, it's Ric Flair and Taker. I know Ric Flair at this time is in his 50s, and he's still having great matches. Flair is a gem. Flair is one of the greatest of all time, absolutely. But so is Taker. And you can't expect anything less out of these two. They went in there, had a great match. We have Booker T versus Edge. Booker T was mad that Edge got a Japanese soap commercial that was being directed by Tajiri. The match was average. Edge wins. Let's move on. They actually did that. Scott Hall took on Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, when you think about this match, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, you would think these two would have a pretty good match. It was decent. I don't know about you. They should have had a better match. Looking back on it, I shouldn't be surprised. Scott Hall had fallen off big time from what he was in WCW, or the early 90s. And Austin was winding down his career. Honestly, he wasn't having the best relationship with WWF. Not too long after this match, they both left. Austin and Scott Hall took their balls and went home. They were just not happy with the WWE anymore. Now, it should be said that Austin does eventually return. He does come back for one more WrestleMania, I believe. At least as a wrestler. Scott Hall, unfortunately, doesn't come back. This is it. This is so far his last WrestleMania match. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it is his last WrestleMania match. Scott Hall does eventually go into the Hall of Fame, as he should, because he deserves it. So congratulations, Scott Hall. Unfortunately, that match didn't deliver on the level I thought it should. That's just my opinion. Next up is a WWE Tag Team Championship 4 Corners Elimination match. We got Billy and Chuck, the supposed first ever gay tag team to win the Tag Team Championships too. They took on the Dudley Boys with Stacy Keibler, the Hardy Boys, and APA, JBL and Farouk, or Bradshaw and Farouk. I don't expect anything to live up to that TLC last year. However, this match, it was average. Maybe my issue was I went from watching that awesome TLC match to watching this match, so I didn't feel it as much. I don't know. I just feel like the best part was Stacy Keibler. I love looking at Stacy Keibler. Who doesn't? That's just how I feel. And I do think, if I'm not mistaken, the Hardy Boys do break up after this. Jeff goes on his own, and Matt goes on his own for a short time. They do eventually come back together, but that won't happen for a while. Alright, let's talk about it. The dream match. The match that people remember, WrestleMania 18-4, The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, or Hollywood Hulk Hogan. In my opinion, this is definitely a classic. I'll be real with you. What made this match a classic for me was the audience. One of the greatest audience reactions I have ever seen in wrestling. I cannot tell you, when I first saw this, how amazed I was seeing Toronto get behind Hulk Hogan. It's a classic case of how an audience can make a match better than what it really is. The hype for this match was off the charts. These two had everybody eating out of the palm of their hands. All they did was do a stare down. They didn't have to touch each other. They would just have a stare down. And they put a lot of heat into this. They had the NWO destroy an ambulance with The Rock inside it. An 18-wheeler crashed into an ambulance with The Rock inside. Regardless of the match itself being pretty freaking amazing, let me tell you why this is a classic for me. Both Hogan and Rock had specific roles. Hogan was the heel, Rock was the babyface. In the middle of the match, because the crowd was so behind Hogan and completely turned on The Rock, you know what they did? They flipped roles. Rock started working as a heel. He threw insults at the crowd. He started using weapons, tried to use weapons. And Hogan turned into Hulkamania. He went babyface. We even got the Hulk up, brother. Which to me is a testament to the true professionalism of both The Rock and Hulk Hogan. To be able to make an audible, call an audible in the middle of the match and work to the crowd to entertain them as much as possible. You don't see that a lot nowadays. It's either you cheer them or you boo them. They said, screw it. Let's give the audience what they want. And dear God, did they ever. I can't say this isn't a classic. You might say it doesn't deserve an A+. Well, you argue against it all you want. It's getting an A+. Hogan and Rock had a classic. One of my favorite matches in WrestleMania history. The Rock wins. After the match, we got an amazing celebration with The Rock and Hogan. Hogan shakes The Rock's hand, passes the torch. And then afterwards, we had Nash and Hall into the ring, assault Hogan because they feel like he betrayed the NWO. Rock makes the save, and we do a celebration the Hulkamania way. It was great. A classic moment for WrestleMania. Nothing followed this. You couldn't follow this, and looking back on it, it probably should have closed the show. I don't think WWE knew what they had when they did this. And unfortunately, for the last two matches, they suffered because of it. We got the Women's Championship match. Jazz, who was your Women's Champion, coming in from ECW, took on Trish and Lita, who made their WrestleMania debuts. And it sucks that this was their match. It was okay. It wasn't a bad match. It was hard to follow The Rock and Hogan. And it suffered. Even the main event suffered. The WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Championship involving Triple H and Chris Jericho, with Stephanie McMahon in the corner of Chris Jericho. It was a decent match, but it was a letdown. I'm telling you, Hogan and Rock took their fire, man. This isn't the only time Triple H has to suffer that same fate, where a match takes his fire and he's in the main event. I'll give them this. They did the best they could. Because in any situation, nobody would have followed Hogan and Rock. Nobody. So the match they put on was the best match they could have. It still has some good moments. Love seeing Triple H pedigree Stephanie McMahon. Again, Stephanie back then got her comeuppance, man. Which is why it was easier to tolerate her. But Triple H wins. He becomes your new undisputed world champion. He celebrates holding up both belts. And this, to me, is Triple H's crowning moment. If anything else, we can say WrestleMania 18 was the night Triple H made it. After years of having great feuds and matches, he finally became an elite player. He finally became a guy that fans can look back on and go, yeah, he's one of the greatest of all time. And that's my review. Solid show. Thank you guys for watching. And we get on to WrestleMania 19, another show people claim to be one of the greatest of all time. We will see how it lives up to WrestleMania 17. But with that said, thank you guys for watching. This is your boy, The Last Man, signing off in The Last Man's World. See you at WrestleMania 19.